ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. Now let us see where we are. So the whole thing here, this argument, that the series of arguments that we are about to enter, has some very important portion, comprises a very important portion in the vision of Vedanta. This vision of Vedanta is very important because it is unlike any other philosophy, and at the same time it is in keeping with the human notion of bondage, and it is precisely to remove that notion of bondage. It is geared precisely to remove that notion of bondage. No other philosophy does this quite in this way. See, the problem with the Buddha philosophy, they accept bondage as real, but then they are in trouble, because that which is real cannot be removed. Or they say it is unreal. Then they are again in trouble, because that which is not real need not be removed. This is the problem. And so here this is a unique philosophy, partly because it is in keeping with the human longing to belong, to be one with the whole. All longing is to belong, and really the ultimate belonging is with oneself as Ishvara. That is what it is. So then it is the second reason why Vedanta, the vision of Vedanta, is unique, is because it is consistent from A to Z. It is totally consistent. It has no internal contradictions. Like in one Upanishad, there will not be, one mantra will never contradict the other, and it cannot be contradicted from outside. There are no external contradictions, which is why it is a stable and consistent philosophy. In fact, we don't even call it a philosophy, it's a means of knowing the truth of oneself, which is why we are studying this. Otherwise, there is no need to study this at all. So these two unique features make this a very, very important contribution for the human predicament. Because the human predicament is full of paradoxes. And what are some of those paradoxes? The life as one knows it appears to be relentlessly miserable. This is what people say, OMG, this is just keeps on going and going and going. Kada aham shanti meshyami, when will I get peace? When will I be free of strife? This jagat seems to be full of conflict. And then the head, inside my head, is also full of conflict. Like there is a Kurukshetra in the head, and then there is conflict outside, and outside is full of strife, sorrow, inside also is full of strife, sorrow. And yet, if this is the reality, the paradox is this, if this is my reality, why am I unwilling to accept it. Why do I keep fighting it all the time? Why do I fight sorrow, hopelessness? Why am I not at home with strife, with conflict? Why is it that I keep fighting it all the time? If this is the reality, Swabhavasya na nivrittihi, that which is real doesn't go away. So then there seems to be two conflicting paradoxical realities in which the human being appears to be caught. And in fact, the human being is not caught, needs to be taught. That's what. And needs to be taught that one is ultimately not caught. That is what is the beauty of Vedanta, because otherwise there is no point in this study. If it's just, why Sheshika, why Nashika, I mean, we can keep on doing this mental gymnastics all day long. But the point here is to understand how the vision of Vedanta, through its own deployment of paradoxes, addresses this very important and primal paradox of the human predicament, where the human being is completely unable and unwilling to accept sorrow, fear, strife, and in other words, limitations of any kind whatsoever. Like the Indian classical singer who has a cold. Sometimes they'll have a cold, but then they didn't know, and then they have to perform. So they'll have some accompanists and everything. But then there is a particular note they have to reach, and they know because of their voice and because of their throat being affected, they are not able to reach it. They kind of point it up there. And they'll have their shishya. The students will be there and the student will go, but the master will not be able to go, and so she or he will point. The teacher will not be able to go, so she or he will point there as though the note is stuck somewhere high and it's not coming out of here, it is over there, and I have gone there before. I'm not able to go there right now. That is exactly the human predicament. I have gone there before. There is a taste, there is a memory, there is an addiction. There is an addiction, unfortunately, to something that is already there. Something that one already possesses. Usually the addiction is something which one has to get. Most of the time on the sly. You have to look to the left, okay, nobody's looking, look to the right, quickly buy it, and then go to a solitary place and then ingest it. This is what one does. But here, that which one yearns for is not contraband. Not at all. In fact, it is one's own nature that one is longing for. And so, like the musician who points to the delight of the note hanging there, but not here, it's not coming out of here, it is somewhere there. Similarly, the human being is desirous of something that one has tasted. But the question is when? Why? Every night when you sleep, there is limitlessness, there is ananda. Only thing, the mind is also asleep. The mind is in a causal form and unable to express that joy, that delight. In hindsight, it is enjoyed or understood. That is, when you wake up, you say, oh, that was such a wonderful sleep. I don't even know where I was. That is understood in hindsight. So in sleep, and whenever any desire is accidentally fulfilled, you just are ecstatic, that. In that joy, that. And so many joys are there in the life. Ice cream joy, book joy, movie joy, so many flower joy, the smile of a small child, that joy, seeing that, everything. Wherever there is some even if there is no desire fulfilled, there is that joy. And this joy is not separate from what we are talking about, from the Sat, from Sad Vastu, from this thing that we call Sat. It's the same joy. In fact, people try to make a distinction. People try to make a terrible distinction. And what is that distinction? That, there is this Brahman joy which is very, 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 very different from everyday joy. Everyday joy is finite, is mundane. Brahman joy comes from somewhere else, and it is infinite and eternal and all these things. And they will not even call it joy. The word is bliss, usually with a capital B. Yeah, this is a problem. For me, it's a problem, okay? And why is it a problem? Because then, if I am a student of Vedanta and I encounter this book which says it is at once supreme and then what else, bliss, supreme and bliss, supreme bliss. How is it different from ice cream bliss? In fact, in Eugene, we have an ice cream called Coconut Bliss, vegan ice cream. Okay, so how is it different from that? This is something, which is worth asking. It is worth asking this question, how is it different from that? So any student of Vedanta encountering the term bliss is extremely confused, because what is this bliss? If it is outside of the joys I know, how will I know when I encounter Brahman joy? How will I know? Because this is not in the realm, it is not in the ken of my experiences. And supreme again is another word which is laden with ambiguity, which is why we don't use it. Except to talk about unleaded gasoline, then you can say supreme, no problem. You can use it. But not for Sadvastu, not for Brahman. This is where it is very mystifying. The teaching has to be clear. This is what the thing is. And so therefore, the joy that I desire and the joy that I miss is the very joy that I am. This is the teaching. Just like all objects are not outside of Sat. It's just Sat in a different form. A serpent that is lying down versus a serpent that is in a coil. Kundali serpent. So it could be in a coil. That's all it is. It's the same thing. Similarly, here also when we talk about joy, it is exactly that same joy. Ice cream joy, not outside of Brahman, Brahmananda. The joy that comes. And this is for a select few out of studying Bhashya. That is also not outside of Brahmananda. This is Vidyananda. And then the other kind of joy is called Vishayananda. Vishaya means objects. So Objectananda is really Subjectananda. That's what it is. Objectananda cannot be different from Subjectananda. The only problem is in enjoying the Objectananda, the subject has to separate itself, and therefore there is a sense of finitude. Naturally, in order to enjoy ice cream, you have to be the subject, and then you enjoy the object called ice cream. There is a separation. First you look at the ice cream, the eyes light up, and there is a smile. And this kind of a small expression of joy, because this is in gradations. This small expression of joy is in the Taittiriya Upanishad called Priya. Because you just see somebody coming to your house post-pandemic, and then they are bringing a big tub of ice cream, and that too your favorite flavor. You kind of strain and see which flavor it is. Even though their hands are covering it, you still see, oh, this is my favorite flavor. Priya, the joy, the gradation of joy called Priya comes out. A few teeth come out, and then in a smile. Then the friend says, because you're not sure, you don't want to get too excited, you're not sure who it is for. Even the friend is, extending their arms and showing you this, you're still not sure. Because they could be saying, please keep it in the freezer for me, and then I will take it later. They might be saying that. But this time, that's not what happens. The friend says, this is for you. And then the next gradation of joy, described in the Taittiriya Upanishad as moda, comes out. Ha ha! Little more ecstatic. There is a pep in the step as you go to receive the ice cream. Here, let me take that burden from your hand, just in case you change your mind. Before that, let me take it from your hands. It is much safer in my paws. And then what? Then the mind does a quick thinking. How many friends have come? 3 or 4. Okay. So 3 or 4 friends and me. So that means 5 portions of ice cream if I eat it right now. Or if I just say thank you and put it in the freezer. All of it is for me alone. And so the mind does a quick calculation. And after that, what? Decides on not sharing the ice cream, and then doing what instead? Waiting for the friend and their friends to go home. And then what? After that, one sits and enjoys the ice cream. The object subject fusion takes place as soon as the ice cream melts on top of the tongue, triggering the yet another gradation of joy called pramoda, according to the Taittiriya Upanishad. Priya, moda, pramoda. Priya, this kind of a joy comes out in the instance of Ishtavastu darshanam. When you spy, when like children, you say, I spy with my eyes a big tub of my favorite ice cream. Priya. Ishtavastu darshanat. Priya comes out. Priyaha. And then moda, Ishtavastu praptihi. Ishtavastu prapti, prapanat, modaha. So when you get it, first you see it, but it could belong to anybody. But then you actually get it. Then what? It is called moda. Then when does pramoda come? When the subject-object fusion takes place. When you actually get to taste that object. And that, here it's ice cream, but it could also be a person. It could also be any other object. So many things. So this is just a small example. So this is, these are joys that we are familiar with because they have gradations. In between there is disappointment. In between also there is stomachache because one binged on the ice cream during the pandemic, sitting in front of Netflix. All these things happen. And so this is what, so in between there is lesha, there is a bit of sorrow. But it is not outside of the joy of Sat. It is not outside of that craving to be one with everything. Here the craving to be one with the truth of the Jagat, with this Sadvastu, has morphed into the craving for objects. The craving for the subject has morphed into the craving for objects primarily because the subject is not objectifiable and appears to be locally unavailable, and so therefore this craving is scattered, transferred. And Vedanta has, it's not easy for the Shruti. Shruti as the mother has to get all these beings from their various fixations, various addictions, and direct those fixations and addictions to Sadvastu, to the Atma, not an easy task for the Shruti. Which is why Adi Shankara writes the Bhashya, because the Shruti is very, very precise. And through the Bhashya we understand the errors in the way of ourselves, our own errors, the errors of our own thinking, and the errors of the the predominant thinkers around us. How one was socialized, what kind of things were there, where is the logic missing. This is why the study of the Bhashya becomes very, very fruitful, because we get one step closer each time we dispense with a nanu. Nanu means this objectioner. Each time we understand this, the objection, and each time we dispense with it, we understand how, we not only understand the objection, but we also understand how to dismiss the objection. We revel in Adi Shankara's logic, we revel in the hetu, the reason that he gives why. For instance, Sat cannot come from Asat. Very nuanced and beautiful discussion. And this is what we revel in, because it gets us closer to understanding the truth of oneself as this Sadvastu alone. And so here we are here to understand this. We have to understand one thing in Vedanta. This is crucial to understanding the vision of Vedanta, that all that is here, that we see as discrete objects in the universe, is nothing but Sadvastu, the subject alone. In the Kathopanishad, there is a very beautiful mantra. Hamsa Shuchi Sat, Vasurantariksha Sat, Hota Vedi Sat, Adhithir Durona Sat, Nrisat, Varasat, Ritasat, Abja, Goja, Ritam Mahat. This is how it goes. Very beautiful mantra. So you go to a park and you see a graceful swan gliding on the pond, on the waters of a lake or a pond, a small pond in the park. And it happens to be not a windy day, and the reflection of the swan is clear, Shuchi. And then this mantra is actually a contemplation. It is very easy to appreciate this beautiful vision of the swan in the water. Who will not like it? The swans are such graceful birds. But then the contemplation here, the Kathopanishad is pushing us to a place of transcending the water, the gliding swan, and all other nature, the willow tree, and all these other grasses, other people enjoying themselves. All this you transcend. And you see it as what? Sat. Hamsas Sat, Shuchi Sat. Hamsa is a pure bird, and also it is associated with a mythical bird which supposedly can siphon off, if you mix water and milk and offer it, it will siphon off the milk and leave the water behind. That's why Hamsa is used for Viveka, discrimination. It's seen as a very auspicious thing. So this is, Hamsa Shuchi Sat, Vasurantariksha Sat. Vasu, these devatas that are there, all of them, they are also just Sat. And then what? Atithi, Sat, Atithi, guest. Here we have a concept for guest, but that's not the ancient Indian concept. Here guest means the one who calls in advance and then makes a date and comes. But the ancient Indian guest, Tithihi na vidyate yasya, the one who drops in, is a guest. In America, the one who drops in is not a guest, but a pest. Okay, so fine difference. But here it is guest. So this is so the guest is, one may be annoyed. One may be very annoyed who dropped in. And after the last morsel was eaten, after all the plates were washed, and after a few yawns took place, we were getting ready to go to bed. Ting ting, the doorbell rings. This is a reality in India. Before the pandemic, it was very much a reality. Doorbell will ring. And then, you wish you were in America and you could just ignore the doorbell and then go off to sleep. But that's not the way. You open the door. It is some friends who have come. And you have finished your lunch. You are looking for a nice nap in the afternoon. All the dishes are washed. Everything is put away. Here and then, of course, Atithi Devo Bhava. Be the one for whom the guest is a manifestation of Bhagavan. And so here in the Kathopanishad mantra, Athithi is Sat. So with clenched teeth, you somehow manage to give a smile. So have you eaten? No, we haven't. Okay. So one person entertains the guest and the other person, is also entertaining the guest, but to frequent trips to the kitchen. And you look in the fridge, what is some kind of an instant thing that can be produced quickly, and then frequent trips to the kitchen, and then the rice is made and the dishes are washed all over again, and then that task becomes easy. If you see this as a manifestation of Sat, it is Sat alone. And this Sat Vastu soon is going to be seen as Bhagavan, is going to be unfolded as Bhagavan, nothing other than Ishvara, God. And so, Nrisat, Varasat, Ritasat, all the seasons Sat, everything is Sat, everything is Sat, Sat, Sat. And that which is born of waters, Abja, that is Sat, everything is Sat, Sat, Sat. And then that is where one is headed. To be able to see Sat, to be able to see, meaning within quotes, to be able to understand the presence of Sat in and through the words and meanings, in and through the names and forms. And so therefore what? There can be only one Sat. That which is in many names and many forms without becoming any one of them. That is what Sat is. So therefore, we have this, Karya and Karana, Karya, Karana, Prakriya, which we are in the middle of. Prakriya is a methodology, a pedagogical tool. So Karya, effect, and then cause. It's a very funny Prakriya, but very profound, because its primary contention is that the effect is non-separate from the cause. Effect is nothing but cause. Effect is what? Cause. Oh, so cause is effect? No, not at all. Cause is cause. Why? Just because. Okay, so effect is cause, cause is cause. In fact, and how do we know this? We just bring in our pot. That's all. We don't need any other example. Pot is clay, correct? The whole pot is nothing but clay. And so it is an effect, and then the everything that you think belongs to the pot actually belongs to the clay. Color of pot, not the color of pot, it's the color of clay. No, but what if it's the painted? If it is painted, it's the color of the paint and the source of that paint. It's the color of clay. Color of pot, color of clay. Weight of pot, and this is a very weighty argument. The weight of pot belongs to clay, not the pot. If you argue otherwise, then I will invite you to please have this pot, have this little clay cup. But you know, keep the pot but give me back the clay. You cannot oblige. So the weight, it doesn't belong to the pot, is weightless. It's a weightless pot. Very interesting. And then the shirt is again a weightless shirt, because the weight of the shirt belongs to the fabric. No, 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 no. That is just a small cause. The fabric has another cause. So the weight of the fabric also doesn't belong to the fabric. The weight of the fabric belongs to what? Yarn. And that weight belongs to the fibers. And the weight of that belongs to molecules. And then finally we have to say Sat. Same thing with your own body. Nrisat, Nri means human being in this Kathopanishad mantra. That's why Vedanta is wonderful to study, because the body is revealed as weightless. Fantastic! Wow, how nice! What a relief! I don't have to think about what I eat, nothing. Body has no weight. It belongs to the 5 elements. Akasha, Vayu, Prithvi, Apaha, Agni. Fantastic! Very nice. Body has no weight. And then, so where does all the weight of the whole Jagat go? Poor Sat must be like that, like that Atlas shrugged. There is one, what is that? There is one illustration of this man holding this big, huge earth. No. Sat is weightless. So where does the weight go? Wait a minute, it doesn't go anywhere, because it never came, it never went. It's as though all the way. As though pot, as though shirt, as though fabric, as though yarn, as though fibers, as though molecules. So then can I also say as though Sat? No. It's not as though Sat, it is Sat. Same thing with your body, as though mind, as though it is nicely, mindfully sitting erect and listening like a good student to Vedanta, as though. Oh, then what about the body of the teacher? Same thing, as though. The teacher's body is also sitting here talking, as though. It's all as though all the way. That is how we can say Karyam Karanat Ananyat. The effect is non-separate from the cause, because the effect is an as though projection of the Sadvastu, to which, by the way, the second thing to understand is that the causality is not stuck to the Sadvastu. Because if the Sadvastu, if Bhagavan was indeed just the cause all the time, then what will happen in between cycles of creation? There is nothing to witness, there is no creation to mind, there is nothing to create. And so the causality also comes and goes. The causality by which Bhagavan is understood for us empirically also comes and goes. This is very, very crucial to understand, very important. Also comes and goes. And therefore, this is something which is not properly, if it is not properly understood, the whole Vedanta becomes an exercise in futility. So this as though cause. Then why only cause? It should be as though effect. That's what I'm saying. It's as though effect. The status of effect is superimposed on that very Sat. And that same status of cause is superimposed on that very Sat. How is it possible for something to be both cause and effect? Simple, because it is neither. It as though lends its presence to quote unquote manifest as quote unquote become the cause. And it as though lends its presence to quote unquote becoming the effect. It is neither cause nor effect. It simply is, and that is called Sat. That is gains a all power, all knowledge called Ishvara. That same is. That's why the first two letters of Ishvara in English are IS, is. And that same Ishvara, endowed as it were with the shadow side of Maya, considers itself powerless, lackluster. Nobody loves me. That's what it thinks. And this is Jivatvam, imbued upon or attributed. It's an as though attribute of this Sat. Same thing. Wearing the crown, this same Sat rejoices, I am Ishvara. I can just think and create something, yippee. And then what? Oh, I don't feel so good. I think I have a stomachache. I don't know what happened. What happened? Jivatvam, wearing the, what is that, a tattered robes of Jiva hood. Jiva hood is as though. Ishvara hood is as though. What about Ishvara and Jiva? They are one. That is what is Sadvastu. Sadvastu is Ishvara, Sadvastu is Jiva. They are all one. But when we talk of Jivatvam, Jiva hood, then it is different. Ishvara hood, Jiva hood. That is what comes and goes. That is what has to be understood properly. Very, very beautiful. And so this is the vision, that this Karyatvam, the status of being the effect, is again as though, and the word for as though is mithya, a dependent reality, or that which depends on Sat. And the status of being the cause is also as though. In fact, there is no cause, there is no effect. Nothing has come, nothing has gone. All that is here simply is. And even if you say something is not, you are constrained to use the word is. Is. It's all just is. And that is Ishvara. That is nothing but I. That is why the first letter of is what? I. This is English Mahavakya. And so therefore these pertinent doubts are raised. And what is that the doubt? This is not understood. And if this is not understood, the doubt that is raised, it is very important to understand this doubt properly. So listen please carefully. The doubt is that how can this Sat be everything? How can it be everything? Because when you say, how can it be the Jagat? I can understand that. How can it be non-separate from the Jagat? I can understand when you say there is a Sadvastu. I can understand when you say that it may have caused many things to come into being. I can also appreciate that and understand that. But what I cannot understand is how everything is Sat alone. How is everything Sat? How can it be Sat? Because when I look around, I see pot number 1, pot number 2, pot number 3, cup number 1, lid number 3, and lamp number 1. So many things I see. The whole world of earthenware seems different. And at the same time, I also see clay as a lump. I see a lump of clay. And then I see the clay, I see the pot. In my mind, they seem to be two discrete things because of two reasons. The two reasons the objector gives. We saw that briefly yesterday, but I think it's important to just revise that. So the two reasons are what? There are two. The first reason is Bhinna Shabda Vachyatvat. Bhinna Shabda Vachya means there are two different words. If they were one and the same, the pot should have been called clay. After all, you keep saying everything is clay, 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 clay. Why do we have the word called pot? Pot should have just been clay alone. There should be no word for pot at all. And if this much is understood, then we see the second reasoning the objector comes up with. And what is that? The buddhi is also different. Buddhi here means cognition. When I look at clay, I don't have pot cognition. I only have a cognition. This idam clay. This is clay. That is the cognition. I don't have pot cognition. Similarly, when I look at pot, I have, don't have clay cognition, I have pot cognition. So, because there are two buddhis here, and because of the fact that there are two different words, the grammar also lends its existence to doing this. There are two different words, there are two different buddhis, and so two different kinds of cognition, and therefore what? Therefore, there must be two different things. So how can you say that there is only one thing? This is what is the person's objection. Okay. So and what is that objection here? Praptam tarhi prag utpattehe asadeva asit. Na idam shabdavachyam idanim idam jatam iti. So then he says, he couches this particular question in a slightly different wording. He doesn't ask straight away. So he says, okay, prag utpattehe, meaning before everything came into being. What was there? You said only Sat was there. And then, what do we say? We say it must be Asat because nothing was there. And everything is as though. And if everything is as though and nothing was there, how can everything be Sat? It cannot be that. Idanim idam jatam iti. And so, the samadhanam means the resolution of this is very beautiful. So what does Adi Shankara present as the resolution? Let us read. Na satah eva idam shabda buddhi vishayataya avasthanadi yatha mrideva pinda ghatadi shabda buddhi vishayatvena avatisthate tadvat. He says, no, your contention that because Sat cannot be object and subject, that the status of, because the person hasn't understood that the status of object and the status of subject are projected onto Sat. Sat in itself is neither status, doesn't have object status or subject status. It is free of all statuses. It is an undifferentiated cause. It is to which it is undifferentiated, to which the causality is imbued. And so therefore he says that this is Sat. What is Sat here? That the idam shabda buddhi vishayataya. The Sat is understood as this. It is here, it is now. How do we say it is here, it is now? Because just now I say that cup is, clay cup is, pot is, computer is, window is, table is, chair is. In this recognition of isness, the objects have to be recognized from the standpoint of isness alone. There is no other way to cognize objects. Even the absence of object is recognized through is recognized through this means alone. The absence of object is the cup in my palm of hand. The absence of the cup is. You see, this is a very interesting way to look at it. And so therefore, this is not what you are saying, that that the pot cognition is separate from clay cognition. In fact, all of them enjoy this is cognition. So you haven't understood this at all. Satah eva idam shabda buddhi vishayataya. That which we understand as Sat Vastu, that Sat is understood only as this Jagat alone. How? Avasthanadi yatha mrideva. This Sat has, as it were, undergone some kind of a change. Just like our clay has as though undergone some kind of a change, like in the form of a lump and ghata, pot, etc. That is, it's the same Sat. So without giving up its Swarupa, without giving up its nature, it appears to have undergone a change. That undergoing of the change is called an apparent reality. It hasn't really changed. It has as though undergone a change. And here in the tradition, we have two kinds of cause. The cause is discussed in two ways. One is called Parinami Karanam. So the cause that undergoes a change is called Parinami. Parinami means result. So the cause that has quote unquote become the effect. And there are many examples of this. And the seed has become the tree, because then when after a tree grows, you dig it up and then you won't see the seed at all. Another daily example, the milk has become the yogurt. Let us say you make homemade yogurt, you put a starter, you stir it in, put it in a warm place. And then after that you say, oh, I want some milk for my coffee. You will not get it, it has become yogurt. This is what is called Parinami Upadana Karanam. So the Upadana Karanam, here the material cause has undergone a change. So this, this is well and good to discuss objects in the universe on the empirical level. But it does not work at the, when we talk about Sat. It does not work at all. Why doesn't it work? Because Sat does not undergo any such change. It is an as though change. And if it is an as though change, then you cannot call it a change. And there is a name for that. It is, so the first one is called Parinami Karanam. This one is called Vivarta. So I'll just write it here for you. Vividham vartate iti vivarta. It exists in many forms without having undergone a change. And as Adi Shankara is going to tell us, what is this? Like the rope appearing as a snake. The rope appearing as a snake, has the rope undergone any change? No. Does it bite? No. It doesn't bite. And does it look slimy? No, it hasn't become slimy. Has it developed some kind of little rings and scales? No, the rope is neither slimy, nor has it become scaly, nor does it bite, nor is it scary. Yet it appears as a snake. This is Vivarta. And what is another example of Parinami? Pot, the clay becoming the pot. Because the clay has now, so to speak, become the pot. It is put in the kiln, and it has gained a kind of a hardness, and then it is not available to knead and make it into another pot if you are not pleased with it. So this is two things here, and then this is what is not understood by people, because the kind of karya effect that we encounter usually in the Jagat, in the universe, is always Parinami. It's always a Parinami Karanam only. It is never, hardly vivarta. So the yarn becomes, the fiber becomes yarn, and then you cannot make it into fiber again, at least not how it was before. And then and then the yarn becomes, what does it become? It becomes fabric, and then the fabric becomes shirt. You can't make the shirt back into the same kind of yarn because it has undergone a change. I saw one cartoon which was very nice, where there is a ball of woolen yarn sitting next to the cat, and then they are having a conversation. And so the ball of yarn is complaining, when you were small, you would bat me and play with me. The yarn is talking to the cat. Okay, you would bat me and play with me. And now what are you doing now? You just ignore me. I feel unwanted. I am unloved, says the yarn. And then the cat just looks at it and says, yeah, I'm not interested in you anymore. This is, you are boring. It looks like I have outgrown you. And then the yarn says, I'm going to mother. And the cat suddenly opens its eyes. Mother? What mother? And then the yarn then is shown sitting on top of the back of a woolly sheep. Of course, the yarn is purple in color, the sheep is white, and then so this is what, there is no going back here. It cannot suddenly become the fur of the sheep just because it was ignored by the cat. Okay, so this is parinami karanam. So we are only used to parinami karanam. We are not used to vivarta karanam. Where at the swarupa, I'll write the Sanskrit definition also. Swarupa aparityagena रूपांतरापत्तिः. स्वरूप अपरित्यागेन. Swarupa, its own form, aparityagena, without giving up its own form, that which as though, rupantarapattihi means as though takes on another form without really, without really losing anything about its own nature. This is what is the definition of vivarta. And what is parinami? Swarupa parityagena. You just take the out of it, and then that is the definition of parinami karanam. Swarupa parityagena rupantarapattihi. Sanskrit is so beautiful. It was such a lovely language. So swarupa parityagena, that which gives up its nature and then becomes the effect, then it is called parinami karanam, a cause that has become the effect. But then, and there are a lot of parinama vadins around. They say that it has become, many theologies say this, that, the, what is that? This whole jagat, God has become the world. Some kind of, what is this? This is very much there in pantheistic theologies say this. God has become the universe. We don't say God has become the universe. We say that which we call the universe is a manifestation of Bhagavan. Two entirely different things. This is vivarta. And that's why we have to keep saying as though, as though, as though, as though. And this is what is being, without this background, this interchange between these two people, the Adi Shankara and the objectors, cannot be understood. And so, Pinda Ghatadi Shabda Buddhi Vishayatvena Avatishthate. So, just like the clay is very much in our psyche, and then the clay is understood as so many different things. Is understood, the pot is understood as clay, the cup is understood as clay. But then the objector's buddhi must be filled with clay, because he doesn't understand this argument at all. So, so he asks another question, and then ननु यथा मृद्वस्तु एवं पिण्डघटादि अपि तद्वत् सद्बुद्धेः अन्यबुद्धिविषयत्वात् कार्यस्य सतः अन्यत् वस्तु अन्तरं स्यात् कार्यजातं यथा अश्वात् गौः. So now he is making it very, very clear. So he says that the karya, the effect is separate from that which you call sadbuddhi vishaya. So meaning the cognition of sat is different from the cognition of that which has come from sat. And then what? And then, so therefore what? See, you may say that we are all talking about clayness, and when we talk about clay, then we talk about a lump of clay, then we talk about a pot coming out of a clay, and then when we talk about a broken pot or powdered pot, all of them are just samsthana vishesha. We saw that yesterday. It's the different forms of clay. So, but then, here, even though pot vyabhicharati, pot has a different, vyabhicharati means has a difference. Pot looks different from clay. Pot has a word to describe it. Pot is a word with a specific meaning. It still differs from lump of clay only on the empirical level. But neither the lump of clay nor the pot contradict the clayness. They do not contradict the clayness. In fact, mrin matram pinda ghatau, pinda ghatadi, they are just clay. Pinda is clay, lump is clay, pot is clay, everything is clay. They are not separate. They may be mutually different from one another. The cup doesn't look like the pot doesn't look like the lid, but what do we see them? What do we see in common? What is that? This is nothing but clay. Nothing but clay. This is what we have to. This is what Adi Shankara is going to tell, because he is saying yatha ashvat gauhu. He is saying that the pot is separate from clay, just like the gau. Gau means cow. Okay, yeah. Gau is cow, and then this ashva means some kind of a horse. And then of course the people who study ancient India will say the horses were not there in the Vedic times, and so you can take it some kind of a mule, ashva, doesn't matter, some kind of a domesticated beast of burden, that carried burdens, etc., some kind of a mule, ashva, ashvat gauhu. So the cow is different from the mule, and then so everything is different. So your pot is different from the lump of clay, so because there are two different words, two different cognitions, etc. So then samadhanam, the answer is given, na pindaghatadinam itaretara vyabhicharepi mrid avyabhicharat. Yes, the pot is different from the lump of clay. The pot is different from another pot. Accepted. But what is not accepted is that even though they have mutual separation, they are mutually different, there is one thing constant, that they don't go away from clay. Avyabhicharat. They don't go away from clay. They are all nothing but clay. Yadyapi घटः पिंडम व्यभिचरति पिंडश्च घटम तथापि पिंडघटौ मृत्वं न व्यभिचरतः. Yadyapi, even though the pot is different from the lump of clay, vyabhicharati, pindascha ghatam, and the lump of clay is different from what you call the pot, tathapi, even then, pindaghatau, in this lump and the pot, the mritvam, meaning the clayness, is constant, navyabhicharati. The clayness doesn't go anywhere. Tasmat mrin matram pindaghatau. Therefore, it is concluded that this pinda, this lump, what you call the lump of clay, and this ghata, this pot are both what? Mrin matram. They are nothing but clay alone. But your stupid example that you gave of the horse and the cow, or the mule and the cow, that is not going to, that is not a good example. Why? Vyabhicharati tu ashvam gauhu ashvo vagam. But the mule and the cow have no common, they don't have a common mother or father. They come from two different species. Cow and horse don't belong to the same species. So your example, yes, Vyabhicharati, your example is filled with contradiction. Tasmat mridadi samsthana matram ghatadayah. Therefore, we now conclude that this mridadi samsthana matram, that all these are as though, these means what? Pot, cup, etc., are as though manifestations of clay. Evam samsthana matram idam sarvam iti yuktam. So, evam, in the same manner, samsthana matram idam sarvam, this whole, that which is idam shabda vachyam, that which is this jagat, is nothing but a manifestation of various forms of that same sat. Even before it was undifferentiated, the jagat remained as a possibility of the sat. So therefore, iti yuktam pragutpattehe sadeva iti, this is sat alone. Vajarambhanam matrat vikara samsthanasya. And moreover, the so-called change is not a parinami change. It is vivarta change. It is not a parinami change. It is not something that where the sat has become mrit. Sat has not become mrit. Sat has not become the jagat. It is an as though change. It is not a real change at all. Because it is an as though change, therefore it is vak alambanam. Vak alambanam means it is just dependent on speech, word and meaning. Word and meaning. That's all there is. Nothing else other than word and meaning. Since it is dependent on the word, this is not what is that? This is not to be taken seriously as sat having undergone any change whatsoever. And do you think he's sitting quietly, the objector? What is your guess? No, not at all. Just changes the subject but has an objection. And then it tries to do a judo move, a martial arts move, where you use the strength of the other person against themselves. You deflect everything and put them, you use their own strength and then make it into a liability or a weakness. So this is a sad attempt on part of the objector, and this objector seems highly erudite because has studied some Vedanta and quotes from the Mundaka Upanishad. Highly entertaining. Nanu niravayavam sat nishkalam nishkriyam shantam niravadyam niranjanam. He quotes from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad about the nature of sat. And then, as though that is not enough, he also quotes from the Mundaka Upanishad. Divyo hyamurtah purushah sabhahyabhyantaro hyajah. Mundaka Upanishad. Ityadi श्रुतिभ्यः निरवयवस्य सतः कथं विकार संस्थानम उत्पद्यते. Very, very nice. So he asks a very interesting question. So what is this? This is the quotation from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Nanu niravayamam sat. Indeed, wait a minute, your sat, you say, is not comprised of parts. There are no, Sat has no parts. Niravayavam, limbless, limbless. So you are accepting something called Vikara Samsthanam. Vikara Samsthanam means what? There is some kind of a change or a different form of the same Sat. What is the connection between this Sat and this Samsthana? There is no connection possible. Why? Because I heard you when you were teaching the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. I heard you. And then what was it? What did you say at that time? The Sadvastu is Ekam, Nirgunam. Ekam means one, Nirgunam, free of attributes. Vijnanam. Vijnanam means it is in the form of Chit. It is in the form of all knowledge. And Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava. All these things, it is always free, it is ever unafflicted, it is never it is never having any kind of a thing, it is Nishkriyam, it doesn't perform any action. Shantam, it is not agitated. Niravadyam, Niravadyam means it is free of papa punya, raga dvesha. It is free of any kind of omissions and commissions and the results thereof. Niranjanam, it is not unclean. It is clean. And so then Niranjanam, all this you had talked about. I listened to you when you taught Shvetashvatara Upanishad. I was very much there. And then what? And then again when you taught the Mundaka Upanishad, you said Divyo Hyamurtah Purushah Sabhahyabhyantaro Hyajah Apranascha Manas Shubhrah Shaksharat Paratah Parah. So Divyaha. And then this Purusha is effulgent, Divyaha. But Amurtaha. Amurtaha means formless. This Bhagavan, this Sadvastu that you talk about, in the other Upanishads say it is formless. It is free of any kind of attributes. Ityadi Shrutibhya. From these kinds of Shrutis, what do we see? Niravayavasya Sataha. So we see that Sataha Niravayatvam Asti. This Sat has got a, if Sat has an attribute, it is attribute-less attribute. It is. The attribute of Sat is that it has no attributes. Okay. So if this kind of a Sat, Katham with Vikara Jatam Samutpadyate. How can you say that it will have some kind of a Vikara Jatam? Vikara Jatam means Vikara Samuha. How come a host of things can come from this? From one thing. Because samsthana means it has changed the form. We can accept that something changes the form, that we can accept, but we cannot accept that that which doesn't have a form, how can it change forms? How can it change form? See, this is a very clever question, an extremely erudite and a thinking Purva Pakshi is asking this question, and she or he is very, is basically trying to use the same quotations from the Upanishads to say that, look, there you said this, you cannot contradict yourself. So if you say that Sat has changed form in, as it were, in order to be the Jagat, I would have accepted that if you had said Sat has a particular form. Sat looks like a pumpkin, or Sat looks like an egg out of which the chicken has come. Then I would say okay. But here you don't accept that. You say, keep on saying till I am sick of hearing. You keep on saying what? You keep on saying Sat is Niravayava. Sat has no attributes. Sat, nothing comes out of it, nothing goes from it. Sat is Amurta. No attributes at all. And so out of that which has no attributes, how can it change form? The formless cannot change form. In order to change form, it should have a form. Pot, clay we can understand. clay had a form, it was in the form of a unshapely lump, and then in the hands of the potter, throwing it over the wheel, now it is a shapely flower vase. I have no trouble with that. I can understand that. No trouble at all I have with that. But for something that has no form at all, is totally formless, how can it change form? How can it change form? And the answer is brilliant. Naisha doshaha rajvadi avayavebhyah sarpadi samsthanavat बुद्धि परिकल्पितेभ्यः सद अवयवेभ्यः विकार संस्थान उपपत्तेः वाचारम्भणं विकारो नामधेयं मृत्तिका इत्येव सत्यम् एवं सदैव सत्यम् इति श्रुतेः एकमेवाद्वितीयं परमार्थः इदं बुद्धिकालेपि परमार्थतः इदं बुद्धिकालेपि. Brilliant answer. We will see part of it today and part of it next time. Naisha doshah. This is not a problem. What you say, and what did the Purva Pakshi say? Purva Pakshi said, a formless Sat cannot change forms. And then you are just calling it Sat. It is Asat. If it has no form, then you better you come to our side and say, out of Asat this whole Jagat has come. This is the contention. And so what is the resolution here? Naisha na esha doshaha. This is not a huge problem. Why? Because Rajju adi avayavebhyah sarpadi samsthanavat. Because you keep saying, I don't have an example. I do have an example here. And what is the example? The example is our trusty rope snake. The rope has nothing in common with the snake. Rope is jada, is insentient. Snake is chetana, sentient. And the rope is not slimy, as we pointed out. Rope is not scaly, and the rope doesn't bite. And then suddenly it appears as a snake. In bad lighting, it appears as a snake. And then, so it appears as a snake. Why? Because the perception is there. The perception is there, and that it appears as a snake. But really speaking, it has not undergone any change. That is the idea. The perception of the snake, or rather I should say, the perception of the rope as a snake happens even though the rope does not enjoy or suffer from any kind of snakiness. So the rope, the form of the rope and the form of the snake have nothing in common in their nature, but still one appears as the other. From the rope, from a non-understood rope, the fearful snake is, as it were, born. This is what is the vivarta karanam. Swaswarupa aparityagena rupantarapattihi. So what does that mean? That the snakeness, we should take it, we will take the pot clay example to illustrate it, will come out better. So the potness, that which is a pot. What is a pot? That which has potness. Let us take it as a working definition. That which has potness is a pot. So then, where is this potness situated? You cannot say it is in the pot, because I have already defined pot as that which has the attribute of potness. So what is that? That actually happens to be clay. So the potness the potness cannot belong to pot. The potness actually from the level of paramartha, Paramarthika satta, from the level of the absolute. Potness doesn't belong to clay. Potness is an as though superimposition upon sat, which is free of clayness, potness, etc., which manifests as clay, which manifests as pot, without being either clay or pot. And that is what is that is what is the beauty here. More we'll see next time. And very beautiful response is given. Then we'll see that later. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. There is a question. uh, where will gold ornaments fit in? Ornaments can be melted back into gold. Yeah, that's why that was just said in passing. It is not the thing here. That will not, that is not in, that won't, that is an example that will not fit here. Absolutely correct. Yeah. So when the rope snake example is understood, the question was that from the formless, how can anything with form comes? In the form of the example given, the clay or rope both have form. Yeah, but what comes is unlike it. Good question. But then that's why I spent some time talking about the rope is not scaly, right? The rope is not slimy, and the rope doesn't bite, etc. That is why I spent time talking about it. So it is unlike anything. So Sat is unlike anything else. How did they are totally contradictory. How did something completely contradictory, Vyabhichara, come from this Sat? That was the example. So here, rope has form, but rope doesn't have the form of snake. Rope is jada. Rope is, it's a dead rope. It's an insentient rope. It's not a sentient rope. So then the snake is sentient, rope is sentient, snake bites, rope doesn't bite, rope is not, scaly, and rope is not slimy, and neither does rope have patterns. So this one has all these things which is completely unlike the rope, and it is not really there. Here the rope, it is not the rope that is formless, it is the snake that is formless. Out of the rope, and as though formless snake has come. Where is the form of the snake? In your own head. It doesn't objectively exist. This is a I'll tell you next time. It's a slightly troubling example because of this reason, because it is a little confusing. But Adi Shankara uses it only to establish anirvachaniyatva of Maya and of Mithya, and then because the nature of that which has come is non-separate from Sat, to establish that, and then to say that out of the formless, formed something can come, out of the formed something, formless can also come. That is the idea. Okay, all right, all the
Thank you,
best.
Ji.
Yeah, take care.